regular business meeting of Waynesboro City Council. I'd like to welcome those that are here this evening. If you wish to speak during the citizen comment period or the public hearing, please sign up in one of the sheets in the back of chambers. Item 2 is adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the meeting? Oh, before we move forward, Mr. Lee, would you please lead this in?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 is adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All in favor of adopting the meeting agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 4-0. Okay. Item 3 is matters from mayor. I do not have anything this evening, so I'll move on to matters from council. Does anyone have anything?
A couple of things real quick. I have to mention everyone, so I don't get anybody mad at me, but we had the 5th grade from Appalachian Christian School come in this past week to a mock city council. The smallest class we've had out of the 4 we've done so far this year, but had the most questions and had the most suggestions. So we've definitely got some future politicians coming out of Appalachian Christian School, I can tell that for sure. But I'm glad they came, and we had a good time with them, and they're welcome back anytime. I know some of them are watching tonight.
Yep.
The other thing is, on April 10th at Riverview Cemetery, I will be presenting a proclamation in honor of Professor Fishburne from Fishburne Military School. It is, oh my goodness, I'll not get the number right. It is his birthday, and every year Fishburne Military School has a celebration, and the cadets all march down and pay their respects at the cemetery in a small ceremony. If I'm not mistaken, it's at 11 a.m. on the 10th of April, and everyone is invited to come down to watch the cadets pay their respects to the professor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Item 5 is the consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
I'll make it.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the consent agenda passes 4-0. Item 6 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance rezoning 300 North Augusta Avenue, tax map parcels numbers 46-1-42-14 and 46-1-40-1 from MXB Mixed Business and RG5 General Residential to LI Light Industrial. Ms. Tate?
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. The request in the public hearing this evening is for an application to rezone 300 North Augusta Avenue. This shows the location of the property within the city. It's to the south of the railroad off of North Augusta Avenue. The applicant is requesting to rezone from mixed business and a small portion that is RG5 or residential zoning to light industrial. The property has been home to construction-related companies since 1950s. The applicants have cleaned up the property. There were concerns about some trash dumping in the area, and so they cleaned up the area. They have fenced it in with an 8-foot screen chain link fence, and then towards the end of last year, they applied for and received a right-of-way vacation from City Council and purchased property from Augusta, a portion of Augusta Avenue and Ohio Street, right-of-way vacations, and I'll show that area that then makes the entire parcel for which they're applying for the rezoning. So the intent is to use the property to store the fencing materials that are related to their business and other equipment that's related to their construction company. This aerial map shows the entire area proposed for rezoning outlined in blue. It is split down the middle. It's two separate parcels. You can see that the area is a mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial uses. So the current zoning is mixed business and residential. The mixed business portion allows for a range of commercial, industrial, and residential uses. The district was created to really provide flexibility where you have housing in close proximity to legacy industrial or commercial structures. There is a portion that's also zoned general residential, RG5, which allows medium-density residential, and that zoning district allows single-family, attached, detached townhouses, and multiplexes, so one of our most flexible residential zoning districts. The proposed zoning would be to light industrial, which is intended for low-intensity manufacturing and industrial activities. So the property is outlined in blue. The portion on the right that is brown in color represents the portion that is zoned the mixed business. And then the portion to the left, that's that kind of orange color, represents the portion of the property that is zoned for RG5, or residential development. And then you'll notice the area where there is no color, and you can see just the aerial underneath coming through. That is the area where they applied for a right-of-way vacation, so it didn't really have a zoning designation on it. It was just proposed right-of-way, and that was successfully vacated, and so now the entire property would be, the request is to rezone to light industrial. The comprehensive plan does designate this area as medium-density residential, so the proposed zoning does not match the land use map. But staff points out in the staff report that the surrounding area is a mix of residential, industrial, and commercial uses. The proposed zoning would be an upzoning. It would increase the intensity, the allowable permitted uses on the property. The applicant does own a parcel between the property that they're requesting to rezone and the closest house, and they're not including that in their rezoning request, so that would remain zoned RG5 residential, and they would leave it as kind of a buffer parcel. They did construct an 8-foot screened chain link fence that would help screen the interior of the property, so any kind of storage of materials from adjacent residential development. There are also 20-foot alleys that run along either side of the property that kind of serve as an additional buffer. The applicant has proffered, so specifically at this time, there's no real change in the operations that occur there other than the storage of fencing materials. But staff did note that with the rezoning to light industrial, if they were to sell the property, we would want to make sure that the residential uses surrounding were still protected depending on what that potential property owner may want to do. So staff brought up some concerns with the applicant, and they proposed that if the 8-foot screened chain link fence was ever to be removed for whatever reason, that a Class C buffer, which is the city's kind of most stringent buffer, would be installed along the perimeter of the property to serve as kind of a protection to adjacent uses. And then also that the hours of operation for the current use or any future owner of the property would be limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So the area that's outlined in blue is representative of the entire property that's proposed for the rezoning. And then that smaller parcel that's outlined in yellow is owned by the applicant and would remain residentially zoned. This is a picture of the property that shows the installed fence that has the screening. And then the tree that you see there to the left of the screen is representative of that small residentially zoned parcel that kind of would serve as a buffer to this development. The property is accessed from North Augusta Avenue. Additional access is possible from Ohio, and that was brought up in the Planning Commission, but it is kind of a grade there to access. So currently they pull any kind of delivery trucks fully into the site and are able to unload. There's plenty of room for a tractor trailer to turn around, so everything's happening behind that screened fence. So there's really no expected change in existing levels of traffic, and they do have access to North Delphine and Broad Street. All utilities are present at the location. The property directly in front of this is a business, And then, as I mentioned, there are other adjacent properties that are zoned and used for residential purposes. And then overall, the area is really a mix of residential, industrial, and commercial uses. The rezoning would bring the property into conformance with the zoning ordinance, so you would like to utilize it for the outdoor storage of their materials within that screened fence. The area is historically a mix of residential, industrial, and commercial uses, and the two proffers would help mitigate any impacts to adjacent residential uses. The Planning Commission does recommend approval with the proffers. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? No? Okay. I hereby open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay. I hereby close the public hearing. Are there any questions about the application from council? No questions? Okay. This ordinance was introduced and seconded at the previous meeting, and unless there's any additional discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of rezoning those parcels identified 300 North Augusta, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 4-0. Item 7, the manager has asked that we hold this item until our next meeting. So we'll move on to item 8, and that's to consider adopting an ordinance appropriating $63,903 if for life funds for the Virginia Department of Health to the general fund. Mr. Ham.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, this is a traditional activity. Each year, the city receives for life funds from the state, and our practice has been ultimately to appropriate these funds in support of the Waynesboro First Aid Crew. That's the plan for these funds. The crew then has an obligation to spend the funds on eligible expenditures, which typically have been training and materials and supplies. And so you may adopt this ordinance this evening. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? No? Okay. Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that passes 4-0. Item 9 is communication, correspondence, and calendar, and comments from our city manager.
Yes, ma'am. I have 3 items this evening. First, you should have received at your places a copy of the school's adopted budget at this point. Also, on April 23rd, the Planning Commission will be holding a work session that will cover a large PUD application, plan unit development, on the sort of northeast side of town. And I would propose that might make a good opportunity for the city council to join the planning commission, not only to hear that information regarding that application, but also to receive information about a cottage housing ordinance that the staff is reviewing and considering. So please take a look at your calendars and consider as a body whether you'd like to join the Planning Commission in a joint work session on April 23rd. I think they plan to start at 6:30. And then finally, last meeting, Ms. Tate, in the course of providing an update providing a presentation of the annual report for the Planning Commission, I think we talked briefly about transportation problems and transportation projects, which sometimes are related to transportation problems, and smart scale application. I think I indicated that we would update the council regarding our intentions for pre-application for smart scale funding through the Virginia Department of Transportation. So this evening, I'd very briefly like to alert you to 3 projects that we intend to submit pre-applications for, which are due on April 1st. The first is a Crozet Tunnel access. This would connect our corporate city from the city limits to the western portal of the Crozet Tunnel. We've attempted on several occasions to achieve grant funding for design and construction to make that connection unique to Waynesboro and provide what we think would be beneficial and important access to the Crozet Tunnel from the city. Secondly, I think we're taking a look at projects that would improve pedestrian facilities on the Ludewitt corridor. I think Mr. Short in the past has talked about his prioritization of that, and certainly through the course of development, we have intermittent areas of pedestrian facilities. So Ms. Tate and her staff are looking at an opportunity to make a full connection along the Ludewitt corridor for either sidewalks or walking trails. And then finally, we're taking a look at our Bright bus stop inventory and looking for opportunities to improve bus stops there, primarily through shelters and pads, so that folks receive some cover from the elements and aren't standing on grass or dirt. And we'd like to improve that in certain bus stop areas. So in August, after we go through a preliminary application process, we'll be back in front of the council to ask for resolutions in support of any applications that we ultimately submit. I think it's important to note also that our work, or Ms. Tate and her staff's work, is undertaken in conjunction with, cooperation with, consultation with our colleagues at the Virginia Department of Transportation, who are always very helpful in sort of indicating likely success and prospects for ideas that we have for projects. And so we do enjoy some guidance and benefit of their expertise and experience with the program. It is a period in which have had fairly significant success in achieving funding for some important projects under the Smart Scale program. And we think that while there are a couple of opportunities on the horizon, we're in a sort of a period where we need to undertake some additional study of some areas in the community and prepare those opportunities for application. And so these projects are a little more simple in nature and perhaps more achievable, and then look for the next round to see another some more recommendations, some more robust and complicated projects. So unless there are questions, that's just an information piece.
Any questions? Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you, Mr. Hamp. Item 10 is citizen comment period. Is there anyone signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then that moves us to item 13, which is a closed session requested by the city manager under Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A5. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session?
Madam Mayor, I move this meeting be recessed and that the City Council of Waynesboro immediately reconvene in a closed meeting for Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A and 5 for discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. The subject matter of the closed session is the potential expansion of an existing business or businesses.
Okay, and do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Okay, this requires a roll call vote. Ms. Bortle?
Mayor Williams?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Councilman Allen? Councilman Lee?
Aye.
We're in closed. everyone gets seated. Do I have a motion to enter back into session?
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the City Council of Waynesboro has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this City Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from an open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such business matters were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. This requires another roll call vote.
Mayor Williams.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood.
Aye.
Councilman Allen. Councilman Lee.
Aye.
We are back in session. Item 14, is there a motion to adjourn? I knew you would, Mr. Allen. Thank you for that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.